Welcome back to my channel, fellow gardeners. Today I want to talk about ground cover, and I think it's really important because basically we've done sort of indoor plants, we've done succulents, we've done everything, but we've never really talked about ground cover. And this particular ground cover is one of my favorites, only because it's the colors of the foliage and the spikes of the flower. This is called Ajuga, and it's basically called a bugleweed or a carpet weed, and it's great as ground cover. So I would like to introduce you to this plant. So my name is Alice. I'm the red soil gardener. The thing about this plant is that basically the foliage differs. There's so many different varieties of this bugleweed. Now here I have this one which has a deep burgundy color, and yet I found this one. I went to someone's house and I saw it. It has the green leaves. You can get a variegated green and cream. You can get a variegated burgundy and cream foliage. But what is so striking about this flower, this ground cover, is in the middle, in the crown, you get this jut of spike, which is usually in different shades of blue, and that's the spike of the flower. And so when you do have it, sort of like, let's assume you've put your ground cover under a tree, suddenly when it does flower, you get all these beautiful spikes of bluish tinted, bluish colored flowers, and it makes it really dramatic. Now the thing about this plant is that, first of all, it is a vigorous grower and it grows really, really fast. And the other thing, it does spread really fast. So if you do grow it as ground cover, just make sure it doesn't infringe into your grassy patch, because it just has these underground stolon, which is like an underground rooting system that pops up all these babies, but then it can actually take over your grass. So do put it in an area and control it so it doesn't take over certain areas like your grass or whatever. So I would actually have it along pathways where you have it streaming down. I would have it along driveways, which would be actually quite dramatic. You can include them in container gardening, such that, because when you do have your container full of different types of plants, but you could have it there because the flower is very dramatic. What is the sun requirement or the light requirement for this plant? It does really well in full sun. However, it can tolerate partial sun, but if you do plant it in shade, first of all, it may not flower. And if it is burgundy, it may change the color and go green, or if it's variegated, it could change its color. So the thing is that, so in order to actually stop your plant from actually losing the variegation or going greener, put it in an area that you will get at least half a day's sun, so you'll get the morning sun, at least it gets its light, or put it in an area that it gets its afternoon light. In that way, at least it doesn't change its color or its variegation. Now, the other thing about this plant, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very, very simple process to do the propagation, because what happens is it does have these underground stolon, which is like a rooting system, and all these babies will pop up. And out of its crown, it does actually produce a lot of babies. It's like starting its own colony, which I will show you. And these again will have its own rooting system and go out and form its own colony. So propagation actually works really well because you will have abundance of it, and it is vigorous grower, so it will grow very fast. But however, again, as I would like to stress, do learn to control this plant, because it does grow very fast and it could take over your garden, your grassy patch. So now I am going to actually put my gloves on because I don't want to get dirty. And I didn't water this plant earlier on, so it's a bit dry. I think I did it yesterday. But let's open it up and have a look at what happens underneath the soil. So I'm just going to put it here on the side, and I'm just going to pluck like here. So let me take this group out. So I'm going to go really deep and then see what I can pluck out. So here we go. Here we go. So let's lay it here. So this is one batch, and if you see it, as we said, is here's your one flower here, one plant, and then you get these underground stolon that will go up like this and then form another flower there, another plant there, and this can go on and on. And if you look at there is another plant coming out again with its underground stolon that will actually go out and actually make its own colony. So in terms of propagation, if you were doing division, I would take my scissors if I was doing a division and just snip it. So I've got one plant there, and then here is another plant there, and again here I could leave this here, or I could actually remove it because it could there. So out of that batch I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 babies there, only because the plant produces these underground stolon and you get a pop. It's almost like a rhizome type thing. Here again we have more batches forming. So I'm going to snip there. I'm going to snip here. So out of this batch, again, I have a baby here, I have a baby here, and I have a baby there. So basically out of a batch is you will end up with a lot of babies. And actually this has got really good rooting since I put it here. It's got really great rooting and quite deep rooting. So again, if you want to make your babies, it's just separate it from its mother stolon, and here you go. So here we go. So basically what happens is that once this starts settling, you will get also babies forming around the side, and then it sets up its own little colony and it will get thicker and keep moving. And so that's why we call it a vigorous grower. So I'm going to just remove this last one and see what's happening. Oops. And exactly what I was saying. So like this little mama here and her babies have actually formed its own colony. And if you look in here, I have one baby here. I have another one here. Okay, they're all coming out. I have this one coming out. And then there's another one here. So out of this colony, again, I've managed to get quite a few. And lastly, this one. Okay, this one I think I'd separated. So basically what we've seen here out of the batch that I had here is I've managed to get all these bugleweeds out of it, or the carpet weed. And with these, I would like to actually transplant them into a patch of my garden that I had initially started, but I think it'll do really well. Now, okay, so we've talked about the sun. What sort of soil does it need? Now, basically a well-draining soil with a bit of organic matter, it does do well. and a well-draining soil. So what I've done in my little patch where we're going to actually grow it in, we've actually opened up the soil, we've put some compost inside there, and basically I'm going to add some of this inside because I've got pumice in here, I've got really organic matter compost. I'm just going to add this inside and hopefully these will take off. What is the water requirement for this particular plant? I think initially what you need to do is actually keep the soil evenly moist. But in situations like in summer, I would give it water, but it does get quite sort of drought tolerant. And also as it grows in its cluster, it does retain a lot of water because you don't get that mass evaporation happening. But always just have it moist soil. It can tolerate a few dry days. But then again, if you give it a really good watering right down to the soil, it can hold that water because of the ground cover. It will sort of not evaporate that quickly. So what we're going to do now, we're going to move there and I'm going to plant this and I'm going to put that soil inside, mix it in the soil, and we're going to systematically plant that and also include this variety in there. So, oh my gosh. So here's one. I didn't want to lose this one. And here's another. So we're going to include all this there. So come with me. This is where I'm going to put my plant. I want it here. The thing is, because I have all these potted plants here, is basically underneath is just soil. And the other day I thought, wouldn't it be nice to actually have it here, but control it so it doesn't start spreading onto my grass. But once those flowers will come up, it'll just make this area more stunning. So what I'm going to do is actually take them and make sure that the root here, the stolon, is actually pointing downwards. We don't want to lie it on the side. So I'm just going to go here quickly, put it, and what I've done is between each plant, I've put it about 15 to 20 centimeters apart. So at least as it starts producing its own colony, it doesn't get congested. So let me just continue and then we can look at it. Here we go, 2 of them here. Here we go. And the beautiful thing about this patch is I do get the morning sun and I do get the afternoon sun. But because of all this foliage, it doesn't get too hot because it's actually quite sheltered. So as I move along, move my stool. And here we go. So there's this one. I think it'll look quite pretty once everything starts picking up. But just to make sure that in the end you don't get it taking over your grass. So fellow gardeners, at least I have put my bugleweed all along here, and I may even get some more and put it in, sort of slightly fill up the gaps. So in the end, at least as you see this foliage happening from my pot, then you get that spring of these spikes, blue spikes. It'll look very dramatic. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Don't forget to like, share, press the notification button and also subscribe. Do introduce your friends to our channel. We do have a lot of fun. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Do leave your comments there. And I'm also on YouTube. Do leave your comments there. I always love to see your comments. So have a lovely day and do think about the plant and its great ground cover, and happy gardening. Bye.